Hello, 70s receiving students and teachers. Thank you. Take your seat. Receiving students and 70s. Let's reflect back to what we have learned in our previous lesson. Who would like to tell us what were some of the common parts of the circle that you have learned? Before you tell me those common parts, I will show you an object. In our previous lesson, we used a coin to describe what a circle is. Okay? Now, in this lesson, I am going to show you another object, which is a lid of tin. Again, class, what shape can you see from this tin lid? Huh? A circle, very good. Now, in today's lesson, we are going to look at only two parts of the circle. The two parts of the circle are, firstly, when you look at the tin lid here, what is the name of the part of the circle which is around here? What do we call that? What do we call this part of the circle? Around. Receiving students, tell your teacher what is the name of the part of the circle which is shown on this object here. You can see my finger going around this shape. What do we call this part of the circle? Samuel.
Diameter.
Sorry?
Diameter.
Samuel says diameter. Receiving students and 70s. Is he correct? Samuel, your friends don't agree with your answer. Have a look at the object again, and you look at my finger. I will go around the object. What is the name of the part of the object or the tin lid that my finger is going around on? What do we call this part of the object or part of the circle? Ruthie.
Circumference.
Circumference. 70s and receiving students. Do you agree with Ruthie?
Yes.
Yes, very good. Ruthie, can I ask you a question again? If you are saying circumference, what is circumference, by the way? What is circumference?
It's the distance around the circle.
Again, slowly, please.
It's the distance around the circle.
It is the distance around the circle. Or we can say circumference is the length of the circle. Or we can say it is the perimeter of the circle. Very good. Thank you, Ruthie. 70s and receiving students, another part of the circle again. Have a look at my finger. I will be showing you another part of the circle. Look carefully. Are you ready? Okay, from one point on this circle, or one point on the circumference, going towards another point on the circumference again. Or I can say, again, from one point of the circumference of the circle, going towards another point on the circumference, on the circle. What is the name of the part? Walter. Loud and clear, please. Receiving students, you can tell your teacher.
Diameter.
Again, Walter.
Diameter.
Diameter. Class, is he correct? Yes. Walter, why do you say it's a diameter? Why?
Because diameter is the distance around the circle.
Do you think it's correct? No. Go try Walter. He says the diameter is the distance around the circle. Is it the distance around the circle? I'm afraid, Walter, that's not the answer. Clement, can you help Walter? What is diameter then?
The distance across the circle.
The distance across the circle, is it the distance? 70s and receiving students, is it the distance across the circle, or what is that line? What is the name of the line that cross the circle from here to here? 70s and receiving students. Yes, we can say the distance across the circle, but sometimes be careful. There's a part of a circle which is also can be known as the distance across the circle. So you have to really specify which part is diameter. Roti.
The diameter divides the circle into two semicircles.
The diameter divides the circle in two semicircles, yes. 70s and receiving students, ever look at the screen. We said the circumference was the circumference of a circle is the perimeter of the circle, or the boundary around the circle, or the length around the circle. Now let's look at diameter. What is diameter? Diameter is a chord that passes through the center of a circle. Don't forget, diameter is a chord that passes through the center of the circle. If that line doesn't pass through the center of the circle, then that's not a diameter. Is that clear, receiving students and 70s? Make sure when you are trying to find out what diameter is a chord that passes through the center of the circle. It passes through the center of the circle. Then it is a diameter. If it doesn't passes through the center of the circle, then it's not a diameter. It can be known as a chord or any other part of the circle. Is that clear, receiving students and 70s? The key word that you will think of is the chord or the line must pass through the center of the circle. Is that clear? Okay, very good. Now, 7's and receiving students, in today's lesson, we are going to look at two objects. In front of me, I have some objects, but receiving teacher, I hope you have remind your students to bring the materials that were needed for today's lesson. So can you put them out in front, and I am going to demonstrate something here. 7's, you should have the materials in front of you. Class, on my table, I have two objects. You might be familiar with these two objects. They are, one, a can, and two, a lid. Very good. Have you seen these two objects around? Yes, you will find them in stores, in your house, or anywhere. Okay, now, these two objects, they have a special name. 70s and receiving students, I would like you to listen carefully to the names of these two objects. Okay? One, the thin lid. We all know, we said that the thin lid shows us a shape of a circle. This thin lid, or any sort of shape, or any sort of object that shows a shape of a circle, is known as a circular object. Again, any sort of object that shows a shape of a circle is known as a circular object. For example, this thin lid. Who can give me another example of a circular object that you know of that gives a shape of a circle? the common one that you know of. Shape of a circle. Clement.
A coin.
Again.
A coin.
Clement, do you have a coin in your pocket? Can you show it to the class? 77 students, look at our friend carefully. He's only known to a coin, and he's saying that the coin that he's only known to is a circular object. Do you all agree? Yes. Clement, why do you say that's a circular object?
Because it's round.
Because it's round, or what is the shape of that circular object? Sorry, the coin.
Round.
Round.
Circle. Circle.
It shows a circle. Very good. So any object that has a shape of a circle is known as a circular object, like for example the coin and also the tin lid. Do you all understand? Okay, very good. Thank you. Now, the other object, the second object. 77 students, what is this second object here? A popular one. What do you call this? Huh? A canteen. Huh? Okay, this is a canteen, a soft drink. Now, there is a special name given to all the canned things or bottles or any sort of containers, okay, which has a shape like this, you see, round, and also a opening here in the front here, and it's known as a Shannon, what do we call this shape? Or what do we call this object? Shannon?
Cylinder.
Cylinder, very good. Now, this is a cylinder, okay? Can you tell the difference between a cylinder and a circular object? Can you tell the difference? Yes. Clement, what can you say about the difference between these two objects? This is a circular object, this is a cylinder. What is the difference?
The can drink is long and the tin lid is circle. Tin lid is thin.
Okay, very good. Okay, thank you, Clement. We can say the lid is flat, is it? While the can is long and round. Okay, it's long and while this is flat. Okay, 77 students, in today's lesson, we are going to measure the circumference of these two objects, the circular object and a cylindrical object. The circumference and also the diameter of these two objects. Is that clear? Okay. Now, there are so many ways that people measure the circumference and diameter of these two objects. But in today's lesson, I am going to show you one way which you can measure using these two objects. And we are going to use the materials that we normally use every day in our classroom. Okay, receiving teacher, please prepare the materials now. 7Es and receiving students, I would like you to put out the materials that you were asked to bring in front of you, and this is what I would like you to do. Firstly, you have to listen carefully to my instructions, okay? Then you are going to follow after me with the instructions on the screen. After every instruction which appears on the screen, you are going to demonstrate it by doing what the instruction is telling you to do. And the students plus the teacher will work together now. Is that clear? Okay. Firstly, I would like you to take out the objects and place them in front of you. And before we go on, would you kindly draw this table, which is on the screen now, onto your books? I'm giving you only 1 minute to draw that. table. It has 3 columns. First column, you write down circular and cylindrical object. That column, you are going to write down the name of the circular object and the cylindrical object. The second column is for the circumference. When we get the measurement for the circumference of those 2 objects, you're going to write it down. And the third column, it's for the diameter. Any measurement you take for the diameter, you write it down. Now, for the receiving students, if you have your student workbook, it's on page 19. Page 19. The table is on page 19, so you can open to page 19. Again, receiving students, the exercise is on page 19, so open to page 19 and copy the table down. Okay. 70s and receiving students, all sit up straight. We are going to do the demonstration now on how we can measure the diameter and the circumference of the 2 objects. Now, 70s and receiving students, are you ready? Okay, let's look at the screen. Okay, steps to follow when measuring the circumference of a circular object. First step, you put a mark or marker point on the circumference of the circular object. Okay, you put a mark on the circumference of the circular object. Something like that. You put a mark on the circumference of the circular object. Let's all put a mark. Take your circular objects out and put a mark now. Okay. I'm putting a mark here. You should be doing the same as what I'm doing. You put a mark on the circular object. Okay, have you all done that? Have you all done that? Just put a small mark, okay, on the circular object. Okay, good. Now, the second step says, place the circular object beside the ruler with the mark pointing to the scale. Now, on your desk, you place the circular object down on the desk, okay, and you get your ruler, place it next to the circular object, okay, something like this. Okay. Make sure the mark that you have put on the circular object must be pointing to 0 on the ruler. Okay. Okay. On the screen it shows you what you should be doing, what you should have done as well. So the mark on the circular object should be pointing to 0 on the ruler. Okay. Have you all done that? Okay. The next step says, roll the circular object along the ruler until the mark returns again to the scale. Make sure that the circular object does not slip. Class, with the help of your friend should be pressing the ruler firmly against the desk. Now, your other friend, you hold on to the circular object and try to roll it over until it returns to the mark again. And make sure the circular object must not slip over the ruler. It must be straight on the ruler moving towards the marking point. Is that clear? Is that clear? Okay. Let's try my demonstration. Okay, let's go. You should be rolling your thin lid like this over slowly, making sure it must not slip over the ruler. Roll. Okay, that's it. Okay? Seven is, the next step it says, measure the circumference in centimeters. As soon as the point comes to the end again, you get the reading where the mark is pointing to. So, for example, on the screen, it stops at 27, and my thin lead stops at 27 as well. So it should be 27.2. The point is pointing down to 27.2. If you are using another circular objects, you should have a separate reading. Your objects, if you have a different circular object, you should have a different reading apart from my reading. Okay, you record that reading on the table. Okay, very good. Most of us have got our reading. Okay, 77 students, let's look at the next step of measuring the circumference of a cylindrical object. All sit up straight. Let's look at the steps. Steps to follow when measuring the circumference of a cylindrical object. Now, 70s and receiving students, before we go on to the first step, I would like you to have a strip of paper like this. Strip of paper. Ready? And then we'll move on to step number 1. Step 1. Place the strip of paper on the cylindrical object. And step 2, it says, wrap the strip of paper around the cylindrical object. Make sure that the edge of the paper does not slip. So let's look at the picture, how it should be done. Something like that. So receiving students and 70s, take your strip of paper, hold on to your cylindrical object. Okay, all look up here. 70s and receiving students. The first step, it says, place the strip of paper onto the cylindrical object. And then, second step, we are going to wrap around the cylindrical object. And we should hold the two edges at the end like this. So you should have done that. Now, the next step, you get your biro, mark a point on the paper where it meets the edge of the paper. So you ever look at the strip of paper, you put a mark where the edge, the first edge meets the another edge of the paper. So for example, here, ever look closely to my strip of paper. This is the beginning of the strip of paper. So as soon as I wrap around, and then when it meets the end of that, so the beginning of the strip of paper, okay, you hold it firmly like that, and then you put a mark. You put a mark. Where they meet. So your mark should be here. Have you all done that? Okay. On the screen, it will show you where to put the mark. Okay, where it meets. Have you all done that? Okay, after you have done that, let's look at the next step. Place the strip of paper beside a ruler with the edge pointing to the scale. So you should do something like this. You put the ruler on your desk. The edge of the paper should be on the scale where it says 0, and you place it next to the ruler. So you can get your reading now. You should have your reading of the circumference of the cylindrical object placing the strip of paper next to the ruler. So my reading says it is 20.8 centimeters. You should have your reading as well. Circumference of the cylindrical object. And you write your reading on the table. 70s and receiving students, we have found the circumference of the circular and cylindrical object. Now we are going to find the diameter of the circular and cylindrical objects. Okay, write your reading down on the scale for the circumference of those two objects and get ready to find the diameter. Class, before we find the diameter of the two objects, I would like you to take out the blank A4 papers and you fold those two papers, this blank A4 paper here, you fold it in half. Fold the blank A4 paper in half, like this. Okay? And also do the same with another one. So you should have two. Okay, fold it in half. Okay, now you should have those two papers folded like this. Have them ready. Now, let's look at the steps when measuring diameter of these two objects. First one, okay, step number 1, place the circular object in between the two papers beside a ruler. So you should have placed the circular object in between the two papers next to the ruler like that on the screen. Let's do that. Okay, the next step, make sure, step 2, it says, make sure the edges of the papers are pointing to the scale forming a right angle shape. Okay? 70s and receiving students, make sure the first paper should be pointing to the scale on the ruler where it says 0, and it should be forming a right angle shape here. And the next paper should be next to the can lid and also pointing down to the scale, and it should also form a right angle shape here. Okay? So that is what you should have done. And make sure the papers must not slip over the ruler. It should be forming a right angle shape at the end. As soon as you have done that, let's look at the next step on the screen. What does it say? Measure the circumference in centimeters. So, what you are going to do, you look at what you have done and you start taking the reading. You start from 0 and look up towards where you have the last paper pointing, the edge pointing to. For example, mine, it is pointing to 9 centimeters. You check yours. Where is it pointing to? Very good. Some of us are following the instruction and we have got our measurements correctly. Okay, you write the reading down where it says lead and the measurement for the diameter of the circular object. Write the answer down. Okay, the next step, we are going to measure the diameter of the cylindrical object. So if you have a can or a bottle or cup, you should be ready to use that to find the diameter now. 70s and receiving students, you have to listen carefully to this instruction because for measuring a cylindrical object, it might be quite difficult. So please listen carefully. Step number 1, rule a line across the paper. Okay? So you get a blank piece of paper and you rule a line across like that on the screen. Okay? So you should have ruled a line across the paper. Have you all done that? Very good. The next step, put a mark on the line as a starting point. So you put a mark on the line as the starting point. So let's put a mark on the line. So you should put a mark on the line as a starting point. On the screen it shows you clearly how you should put a mark. Okay, good. Let's look at the next step. Place the cylindrical object on the line. Okay, so you get your cylindrical object, place it on the line. Like this. Place it on the line. Okay, next step. Place the first paper next to the cylindrical object on the starting point. Using those folded papers, you place the paper upright, standing it upright like that on the screen, next to the cylindrical object, but it must be on the starting point. So you pick up one piece of paper like this, you place it down, where the starting point is, and make sure the can must be next to the paper, and it should be standing up like this, okay, on the starting point. You should have your friend helping you to hold the paper, and the other one all in the canteen lead family. You holding paper. Holding paper. Okay. Next, place another paper next to the cylindrical object. The two papers should be standing upright on the line. So you place the other paper again, so the two papers should be standing upright like that on the screen. So you should have the papers stand up like that with the cylindrical object down. The next step, you make sure the edges of the papers are on the line, forming a right angle shape. Again, let's look at the edges. Let's look at the edges. The edges of the paper must form a right angle on the line. So the edges of the paper onto the line must form a right angle. So we are talking about this one here. It should be forming a right angle, and the other side as well. So you should be having two right angles being formed at the edge of the papers. Once you have done that, let's look at the next step. Put a mark on the end, at the end on the paper. So where the other end where there's no mark, you put a mark there. So you get your biro or pencil and put a mark. Okay. After you have put a mark, it should be something like that on the screen. After you have put a mark, the next step says remove the cylindrical object and locate the 2 marks on the paper. You remove the cylindrical object and the papers. Remove them. Thank you. On the screen, it shows you what you should have on the paper. So on our papers, the line should have been marked. There are 2 marks on the paper. Okay? There should be 2. Okay? Do you have those 2 marks on the paper? Good. 70s and receiving students, the next step is use a ruler to make the measurement in centimeter. So you get your ruler, and then you try to find the measurement by putting the ruler on the paper. The starting point should be the 0, and then the finishing point. So my measurement is 6.7. So if you got 6.7, it should be correct. Or if you have 6.5, it's okay. It depends on the circular object, the cylindrical object that you are using. Or 6.5, 6.7, 6.6. That's okay. It depends on the type of cylindrical objects you are using, so that's it. Finally, 70s and receiving students, you should have at least a table been filled like that. 1 circular object and 1 cylindrical object, their circumference and diameter been written down like that on the screen now, showing to you. So you should have the readings like that. With that, 70s and receiving students, to sum up the lesson, those are some of the steps in which we need to follow to measure the circumference and diameter of the 2 objects called the circular and the cylindrical objects. Now, for 70s and receiving students, the table which you have got down, please put it away nicely. We are going to use that in our next lesson. So make sure those information that you have collected, you keep them away nicely. Our key phrase for today's lesson is measuring circumference and diameter of circular and cylindrical objects. And our next lesson will be on identifying pi. 70s and receiving students, we have come to the end of our lesson, and thank you very much.